Florida under siege, waves of rain, devastating wind, and damaging tidal flooding. Nature at her worst. A furious hurricane bears down on our state, and in only a matter of hours, cuts a wide path of destruction. In only a matter of hours, lives change forever. This is Eye of the Storm, your guide to surviving a hurricane, with meteorologist Roy Leap.
As weather director for Channel 13, I've tracked and followed many tropical storms and hurricanes in and around Florida, but never one as destructive as Hurricane Andrew. It'll take South Florida years to recover from this disaster. Property damage exceeds $20 billion. People left homeless number 180,000. 86,000 workers lost their jobs from businesses destroyed or severely damaged. And 52 people died from Andrew in Florida, Louisiana, and the Bahamas.
We just lost everything.
The recovery process is moving along. It's slow. You need to understand the extent of the devastation that occurred and how slowly it takes for the federal funds to come into the area, for contractors to come in and rebuild and repair tens of thousands of homes.
Now you see here, the gabled end just came off.
Bob Sheets, director of the National Hurricane Center, takes us on a tour of a community leveled by Hurricane Andrew.
Here we are, 8 months after Andrew, and this is what you see, 8 months after Andrew. Obviously, this house has to be totally leveled. Now the concern is how much in the way of vermin you may have here, rats, whatever, that may be created in what once was a very beautiful community. This was a very beautiful community. This is one of the things we learned from Andrew, was that what you had to do when the house started to crumble around you, and I wouldn't be surprised at all that the people were in this house when this hurricane struck, because many of the people were here in Country Walk. So you know the wind is coming that way, and you know that this is starting to fail. You're going to look for some interior room, some interior place. Perhaps in this one, of course, we're all speaking here after the fact, but what you normally look for is a closet or a bathroom. And this one looks like the one that I would have chosen. Even though if you look in this bathroom, you'll see that indeed you've got the ceiling is down, but the walls are around you. So what you're really looking for is some relatively small area where the walls are enclosed that can support you. And of course you got the hall across the way. So I probably would look for this, bring my mattress in if I can, maybe get into the tub here, put the mattress over my head. And so that's the kind of place you look for as what I'd call a place of last resort refuge in the house itself. It's not very pleasant in here right now, obviously, and wasn't very pleasant during the hurricane, I'm sure.
The Hurricane Center ranks storms on a disaster potential scale. Category 1 being a minimal storm and Category 5 being a worst case. Hurricane Andrew was a Category 4 storm.
That's terrible. This is awful.
Nobody is ever as prepared as they should be for a Category 4 or 5 hurricane, because basically you're looking at a catastrophic event and you're looking at a complete loss of just about everything. What you're doing when you get prepared for a hurricane is you are going to do what you can to increase the probabilities that you will survive and that you will recover.
If you think this can't happen in the Tampa Bay area, you're wrong. When a major hurricane eventually does hit Tampa Bay, and it will sometime in the future, we'll all be horrified at the damage.
The destruction from this storm goes beyond anything we've known in recent years.
It's total devastation. I don't know what I'm going to do.
It's just nothing. Everything is just gone. I lost everything we had.
One of the significant risks is wind. Bob Sheets of the Hurricane Center estimates winds were 150 miles per hour with gusts up to 180 miles per hour in this damaged area of Miami.
Now the wind was coming through the house from the other direction and popped this out. If we go around the other side of the house, we'll see at the other end is collapsed in. Right. And so it just came right on through the house. I think one of the main things that we need to get across to the people in the greater Tampa Bay area is that these structures are stronger than what you normally have in the Tampa Bay area. So you really need to go back and re-examine some of the construction practices that are taking place there and learn from the lessons here from Hurricane Andrew.
Downtown Tampa is definitely in harm's way for a major storm.
Then there's the risk of storm surge from a hurricane. Bob Taylor directs Hillsborough County's Emergency Operations Center, a government agency which specializes in responding to an approaching hurricane.
The worst-case hurricane would bring a wall of water into the downtown Tampa area here of between 26 and 28 feet above normal sea level. This guy had quite a bit of damage. Yeah, he sure did. Look at all that erosion. Yeah, see, he lost his whole yard, his pool. As seawall went, then he lost everything. Now, see there, that's from 5 feet of water, 5 or 6. There's your example of what we'll be dealing with. This entire southern tip of the peninsula in a worst-case situation would be underwater, and that's why no matter how safe people think they are or how good their structure is, they really do not want to stay down here and get isolated, because then if they have a heart attack or they have a health problem or something, we may not be able to get to them with our responders to assist them after the storm has passed.
The biggest killer in hurricanes is the rising water. The second biggest killer is electrocution due to downed power lines. Keep that in mind as a hurricane moves inland. A major storm will disrupt entire cities and counties. Each Bay Area county has disaster planners such as Dave Bilodeau of Pinellas County. Pinellas, like all coastal counties, has a color-coded evacuation map.
The green area would be the first level to evacuate, which would be synonymous with a Category 1. The blue is for a Category 2, and then both green and blue zones would be required to evacuate. The yellow for a Category 3, the red for a Category 4, and then the extreme dark red for the Category 5 in order to get the Category 5 worst-case scenario total evacuation of all areas subject to storm surge. The citizens in these areas, unless they live in mobile homes, are strongly encouraged to stay in their homes because they are high and dry and away from the storm surge, and if they properly prepare their home, shutters, boarding their windows, having their emergency supplies, they'll probably do quite well in their home. We also encourage them that if they have friends or relatives or co-workers that live in these evacuation zones, to please invite them to come to their home. And by doing this, they're taking care of our tremendous shelter deficit, plus you reduce the amount of preparations you have to do. We don't have that many shelters. We have, on an average, about 90 shelters per hurricane season. They're dispersed throughout the county. There's only room for less than 100,000 people. In the worst-case hurricane evacuation, it is anticipated that 578,000 people would be required to leave from those color-coded zones.
Use this checklist to see if you're at risk from a hurricane. Call emergency planners to find your evacuation zone and level. The high-risk areas are Interbay Tampa, downtown Tampa, coastal areas and beaches, especially St. Petersburg and Clearwater.
As you see in South Florida, no matter how many precautions you take, there's no guarantee your home won't be damaged or destroyed. Make your life and your home as hurricane-proof as possible to increase your odds.
We're getting ready to board up. I ain't gonna wait for the last minute.
Yes, sir. Better safe than sorry. Take care of it now. Get it done.
Electric shutters are not inexpensive, but the protection that they offer, I think, is somewhat better than other types of suggested protection, such as tape or film or even plywood. So you have to look at it from the standpoint of, number one, what can you afford to do? Number two, what is your vulnerability? Are you up high where the vulnerability is from wind? Are you on a lower elevation where the vulnerability might be from airborne missiles breaking glass? There is a less expensive way to shutter your house. Home construction expert Ken Young shows you what to do.
This is half-inch plywood that you can pick up at any hardware store or lumber yard. What we've done was measured the window, and we've allowed this plywood to go beyond on either side so that when we fasten it, it's going to be snug up against the window. We've got it braced in the middle so that any head-on winds is not going to fold this and, of course, cause damage to the window. These are galvanized. They're lead shields with lag bolts. And of course, you want to use a washer because you'll want as much strength behind that plywood to hold that plywood in place. After drilling out the hole to the proper size, you'll take a lead shield and insert it in the hole. It should be nice and snug because you don't want this coming out with any high forces. And you just tap that lead shield into the hole where it's nice and flush. Now, you can leave these in permanently. You can caulk over this hole, and it's always available to use at a later date. You see that we're lining up the bolts with the lead shields that we've got installed in the masonry wall. If people wait till 2 days before the storm is supposed to hit, they're going to find long lines at their hardware stores, their lumber yards. Yeah, do this. Make this a weekend project. I mean, a family can get together and do something like this. Have it prepared, take it down, paint it, store it in their garage, store it up in the attic if it's small enough. You also want to make sure that you've got each window marked, top and bottom, and for which window it's designated for to protect. The roof turbine. It's great for getting the heat out of your attic. This is going to end up being flying debris should a hurricane hit this area. You're best to replace these with the low-profile type convection ridge vents, or roof vents as they call them, because as you can see, this is a windmill ready to go flying through the neighborhood. Then it's going to open up your roof to wind and water damage. If you've got any outside antennas, get them down, make them safe. You won't be doing some damage to somebody else's property as that thing's flying through the air. Go completely around your home, do a survey. Any items that can be blown in a wind situation, take them and safely store them in the garage. These things will end up being deadly projectiles in a high wind storm. You want to take a close look at any trees that are close to your home. The wind, of course, is going to whip the tree branches and can cause some damage to your roof line or even to some close windows. So cut those things back. It doesn't take but a few moments. Cut those limbs back so that you've got plenty of clearance. Check also your trees, see if you've got any bird feeders. Those things can become deadly missiles. How about citrus fruit? Remove all that you can because these things are deadly projectiles in a high wind situation. There are certain steps that you want to take when you actually evacuate your home. We showed you earlier what you should do to brace your windows, protect those, but one of the last things you want to do as you leave a home is you want to go outside, already know ahead of time where it's located, and go to your main water shutoff valve and turn this completely off. So in the case there is any damage, you're not going to have water spewing throughout the house. So cut this off right as one of the last things you do when you leave your home. Now, probably the last thing you want to do is go to your electric panel and turn the power completely off. The reason you want to do that is after the storm is over and you return back to your home, you know that you're not going to be in any trouble with electricity due to any damaged wires, any live wires laying on the property. You know that you've already had it turned off. You're also going to keep any damages down to your appliances, or should you sustain any damages, no electricity, fires, things like that will result because you've got that power turned off. If you've got any other sub-panels other than the main panel, go to those and turn those off as well. If you need to be sure, turn off all the breakers before you leave the house. That way you're absolutely sure all the power is dead and you're not going to have any troubles when you come back.
Remember, when securing your home, install electric or plywood shutters. Remove roof turbines and antennas. Store any outside objects like furniture and grills. If you're leaving your home, turn off the water main valve and shut off your main power supply.
He can't even find his home.
This is the anchor that is used by the state of Florida and approved also by HUD. It's put in the ground within 4 inches of the ground height you have to anchor, and you have to anchor every 10 feet. It's more than adequate. There's a frame underneath the home sets on. We take this underneath and we put it through the frame, and then we bring it back out like this here. And then after your anchor's in the ground, it goes in through these bolts here. We twist it around and tighten it up where it comes back in through here. And you can believe me, they won't come loose. After we install them on the site and tie your manufactured home down, your county inspector also inspects them. If he feels the strap is loose or the anchor is too far out of the ground, he'll have the setup people redo them, regardless who they are. In this case here, say if you had a storm coming, well, you just take this bolt loose here and this bolt loose over here, and you take and drop this down, and then they bolt in here on the side. And that's what's known as a hurricane awning, and it straps down over your windows. Your shed people have the same requirement. They have an anchor that's about half this size, and you'll find the sheds that don't blow away are the ones that are anchored.
Mobile homeowners should also install electric or plywood shutters. Make sure your home and shed are securely anchored, and above all, take special note of your mobile home's high risk in hurricanes. Even the weakest hurricane can cause major damage.
I want to talk to you about preparations you need to make for a pending hurricane. One of the first things to consider are your lines, and your lines aren't any good unless you protect your lines. These lines here are protected. They're spliced with the protecting plastic inside the splice. This one does not have any. It would chafe through with any working, and you lose your line, you lose your boat. This also has chafing gear over the splice where it goes over the edge of the pier, so again, it will not chafe through there. The chafing material is extremely important because in a hurricane situation or a storm situation, there's a lot of violent movement of the vessel, and it constantly pulls on the lines, twists and rubs the lines against the fittings, and which in turn is like filing its way through. Chafing gear will prevent that from happening, or certainly delay it long enough to hopefully the storm will dissipate and your boat will still be there. The lines are doubled up. Here we have one line which most people will have on their boat from the stern on the port side. You should have a second line, again back to this fitting, but to a different fitting on your boat, so that if one fitting lets go, you still have one good fitting holding your lines and securing your boat. As for your mainsail, if you're going to leave the sail and sail cover on, you should lash them like such so that the wind cannot get underneath and then start ripping it apart. Okay, and that'll take care of your sails and your sail cover. It might be even better to take them all off and get rid of them. You also want to put a line on your boom, prevent it from violent movement. Okay, another concern is the bimini. If the bimini is up, that's again a sail area for the wind. It's going to give your boat violent motion. It's also going to rip it. So you can take your bimini, collapse it, secure it, lash it down, and maybe you want to even take it and put it ashore. But at least do this much. Another concern are your electronics that are on board. It is important to remove them from the boat in order to keep them from becoming damaged. Take off your radio, your LORAN, your radar, and one final matter to be concerned with, and that's your fuel tank. It's important that you top off your fuel tank for a couple of reasons. If it's half full, the violent motion within the tank is apt to break it loose. Also, there may not be any fuel available after the hurricane passes through. You have 5 categories of hurricanes, and the first 2 categories you stand a chance. Once you get into category 3, 4, and 5, whatever precautions you take may not be adequate. It's just going to happen. If you have a boat that is trailerable, get it out of state. Head for Iowa.
Moving your boat to a safe area is at the top of our checklist. If you can't, secure your vessel at a marina. Your sails and bimini should come down. top off the fuel tank, and remove all the vessel's electronics to prevent damage.
Everything ran out. All the batteries were gone, all the water, all the plywood, all the sterno.
If they don't leave, they're putting their life on the line.
I'm Lynn Howard. I'm with the American Red Cross. Whatever you determine your personal family plan is, you need to have certain items available, whether you're staying at home, evacuating, going to a Red Cross shelter, or going to a friend or relative's home. You need to plan for your own bedding, a pillow, a blanket for every member of the family. If you're going to a Red Cross shelter, you need to bring something to sleep on as well, such as a cot, a folding lawn chair, or an air mattress. Other things you need to take with you are personal hygiene items, such as your toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, shampoo, those types of hygiene items. If you have an infant, definitely bring enough supplies to last for at least a few days. Diapers, formula, baby bottles, all those kinds of things need to be brought with you no matter where you're evacuating to. Change of clothes, or a couple of changes of clothes for every member of the family is very important. Flashlights, batteries, or other items that are important. Something to keep the family occupied, such as coloring books and crayons for the kids, a favorite game or a favorite toy. Books and reading material for adults too, because we don't know how long you'll be away from your home and need to occupy that time that you're spending there. It's also important to have an emergency first aid kit on hand with supplies such as Band-Aids, antiseptic, gauze, and other emergency items. Prescription medication is very, very important. Prescriptions won't be available at Red Cross shelters, and even if you're staying at home or evacuating somewhere else, you may not have access to your pharmacy for some time. You also need to bring all of your important papers, your driver's license, birth certificates for all the members of the family, and insurance information.
Let's get this shaving gear together. Can you help me with that?
We found out we hadn't done a good enough job helping people be prepared to come to Red Cross shelters because they didn't bring essential items with them. And that's why we've tried to launch a public education campaign to get the public to be prepared. And I think we had not also told people strongly enough that they needed to look to other alternatives to Red Cross shelters because it's not the best of all their options in most cases.
Review this list once again for hurricane evacuation. Take pillows and blankets for your family, personal hygiene items, clothes, games and books, a flashlight and plenty of batteries, a portable radio, important papers and identification, prescription medications, a first aid kit, cash, and plenty of gas for your car.
If you're planning on staying in your home, these are some essential items you'll need to cope during a hurricane. Non-perishable foods, canned goods, but don't forget, keep a non-electric can opener on hand in case power goes out. Snack foods, juices. Bottled water is very important because water supplies can become contaminated during a hurricane. Also, freezing jugs of water to put into your cooler with your perishable foods is another good idea. Paper goods are essential. Paper plates, eating utensils, and cups. Again, water may become contaminated and you need to use as much water as you can save for drinking water. Also important to have on hand are personal hygiene products such as toilet paper, paper towels, and garbage bags. And baby wipes are great for cleanliness when water's not available. Put water in your bathtub. Think of anything around your house that you could put water in because that's going to be a very scarce thing. You cannot survive without water, without drinking water. And there's no reason you can't do it today. You don't have to wait until a hurricane threatens, or you don't even have to wait until June 1st, the beginning of hurricane season. The preparedness plans that we've laid out to try to help people have their own personal plan can be done anytime. And it's a very simple thing to do. Have your supplies stowed away, ready to go, or at least have a list of things that you need, because in the heat of the moment, you're not going to remember all those items that you need.
Your stay-at-home checklist should look like this. Have plenty of non-perishable food, a manual can opener, water, personal hygiene items, medications, cash, flashlights and batteries, and a portable radio.
Anybody ought to know at any given point in time where the shelters are that might be able to receive their animal, boarding kennel or whatever during the time of a storm. Because if they're evacuated, in all probability they will not be able to take their animal to the shelter with them.
Does he have his tags on it? It's got a name and address on it?
They need to make sure, absolutely sure, that their pet is properly identified and wearing proper identification, because if it gets out, it'll be very, very difficult to return that animal to the owner.
Good boy! Good baby!
If you have a regular vet that has boarding facilities available, I would make prior arrangements, if that's possible, so to say that in the event of the storm, you would like to reserve a space for your pet. Many times we make preparations for our houses, we make preparations for our own health and safety. Consider the same for your animal during the course of the storm. Your animal is A, going to be terrified because sometimes they're hypersensitive to low pressure. B, their needs for food, shelter, water, medication are going to be the same as any human being. So please, by all means, consider the animal's needs as well.
Oh, wait.
Okay, guys, here we go.
Checking the list of needs for your pet, make prior shelter arrangements at a kennel or veterinarian. Have an appropriate pet carrier, ID collar, and rabies tag, plus a food and medication supply.
I'll find me another place to live, period. Get the insurance company out here to take a look it over.
Many people in South Florida were caught off guard by Hurricane Andrew, and they lost scores of their personal possessions. Insurance experts say that recovery could be made much easier if people would make up inventory lists of everything they owned long before the storm.
I need appraisals, I need pictures and descriptions so that I can cover those things properly, so if they're destroyed in a storm, there is no question as to whether or not we're going to pay it. Make a list, make an inventory of what they have. Just sit down, even if they do it on a pad, and make an inventory on what they have in each room. It's very important that they make sure that they have replacement costs on the building and the contents, and they have an all-risk type of policy.
Your insurance checklist should look like this. Take an inventory of your possessions. Keep all property receipts, dates of purchase, photographs or videotapes of rooms. Then store a copy of your inventory in a safe deposit box. And make sure you have an all-risk policy.
If you can find the door, we will.
If I can find the door, I can unlock it. Thank you. You need a sense of humor, otherwise you'd fall apart. We don't want to fall apart at this point. We can't afford to fall apart.
Recovering from a disastrous hurricane can be a time-grueling process. It's estimated that parts of South Florida may take at least 5 years to get back to normal. People here with damaged homes are learning lessons the hard way from Hurricane Andrew.
They were going to charge me $17,000 to just patch my roof, okay? November comes along, I'm real tired of the work they did for putting buckets down every night.
I know he's not doing what he's supposed to do. How can I fire him?
Okay, the contractor is your employee. You can fire him whenever you want to. Have you overpaid the contractor? Has he earned the money you've given him? If you've overpaid the contractor, then you're going to have to try to get your money back. That could be a civil matter. If he doesn't agree to do it willingly, you'd have to take him to court to get your money back.
Complaints still pour in, people victimized by greedy or unlicensed contractors.
We're easy prey. I mean, it's very easy to be taken advantage of because you have to trust somebody at some point.
You think you got taken?
I know I got taken.
Before Luther Johnson found an honest contractor to rebuild his house, he lived the worst nightmare imaginable. He gave $21,000 to an unlicensed contractor who then skipped town without ever finishing the job.
I didn't see him for 3 weeks. I'd call him on the phone. They'd start to lie, tell me different lies. And then all of a sudden, they just dropped out of sight.
Scores of others trying to rebuild are in the same dilemma. The warning here is to be careful who you choose.
Don't be rash in signing with the first contractor who walks down the street. Take your time about who you sign with. Investigate, find out who you're dealing with, and then allow him to perform. And when you're satisfied with his performance, then you can pay him. And that's how it should work. Unfortunately, that's not the case down here in Dade County.
Well, you can build to resist the strength of the storm. There's no question about it.
Bob Sheets of the National Hurricane Center shows us why some houses failed to hold up under Andrew's force.
Now, the wind was coming through the house from the other direction and popped this out. If we go around the other side of the house, we'll see at the other end is collapsed in. And so it just came right on through the house.
A house with a gable roof is generally more vulnerable to hurricane force winds than a hip roof.
The more big open areas, the more big spans that you have, the greater the chance of losses. You see the big glass area there? I don't know if the other end had that, but those are areas that may fail. Once the wind gets inside, off it comes.
Sheets says many homeowners should rebuild to withstand future hurricanes.
So there's steel rods inside of that. That's extremely strong. And I've not to date seen one wall that failed that had that.
Steel, reinforced concrete block homes with hurricane straps give the ultimate protection. But still, Sheets says less secure wood frame homes are still going up.
In my opinion, if it was my house, I would have the solid concrete walls up to here.
The most important thing you want to do is be there at critical phases of the construction.
Construction expert Ken Young shows us what to look for and what can happen.
These hurricane straps are embedded in the concrete lintel. They should come out, come over the top of the trusses, and fold over, and they should be nailed securely to this truss. This is what's going to hold this whole truss system in place in a high wind situation. You want to check and make sure that this is securely fastened to the truss and that it's as securely embedded as you can see this one isn't. You're going to have movement here. Now here's an example of where the hurricane strap is placed in the wrong place in the top of the lintel and is too far away from the truss to really have any effect in holding it. This was installed incorrectly.
Remember, recovering and rebuilding from a hurricane takes time. Investigate a licensed contractor before you do any hiring. Require references. Hold off payment until the job is finished. Steel reinforced concrete block is more storm resistant than wood frame construction. Make sure hurricane straps are properly installed. And if you can afford it, hire your own inspector to make sure the job is done right.
Hurricane Andrew has left a lasting impression in everyone's mind. Hurricane Andrew's victims will surely never forget his destructive power. Andrew serves to remind all of us living on coastal or inland Florida to be diligently prepared because we are all vulnerable targets of the eye of the storm.
This has been Eye of the Storm, your guide to surviving a hurricane.